Professor K here. So today we're going to continue on with our learning of JavaScript by figuring out what types of variables we can set and kind of the different methods of setting them. So in this video we're going to focus on some new syntax, what the difference between the ES5 syntax for variables is, and what the difference between ES6 variable syntax is. And we'll also talk a little bit about why it's so important and what syntax you should choose and why, like what kinds of different situations you want to look at. So with that, let's get started. Now here we left off in our last video just knowing how to log to the console, and we found out that we could log a little message to the console, or we could check the value of a variable that we had set. And here we set a variable of name, and we used a string, Ashley, as our variable value. So let's go through and just check out, here's Ashley, console.log name, Ashley, perfect. So in ES5, when we declared variables, we could redeclare them as many times as we wanted. So here we could put the name as my last name, J, and when we console log the name, let me just clear this out and show one more time. Let's have it log out. We'll just hit refresh here. It's being a little finicky about showing the console updates. There we go. So here I could redeclare my name. Declaring means this equals, right? So we declare using var, this keyword, and then name. You could even just do like var name, right? You don't have to do the equals part, the assignment, just yet. And if we were to console log what that looked like at that point, well, that's interesting. It would still show the same thing. I was curious if when I redefined it, it would show undefined. So that's pretty interesting. But the point here is that it became really easy to forget that you accidentally are writing over a variable, especially in what's called the global scope. We're going to talk more about what scope means in JavaScript, but the basic idea is anytime where variables are in the same sort of space, and we'll call space like anything between, say, two opening and closing brackets. So you'll see opening and closing brackets all over the place, often with like functions, or you might see it in like an object. But anytime where variables are sharing the same sort of space, what would happen is that with variables, we could overwrite them and accidentally have serious problems. So this wasn't great. And what happened after that was people said, well, why don't we fix that by introducing two new types of variables, let and const. So the difference between variable, let, and const is that with variables, just generic variables in JavaScript, you can re-declare them, use the same variable name at any time, and you can also reassign them, give them a new value at any time. Let is a better kind of version of that. It's kind of like an upgrade. With let, you can reassign them at any time, but you can't redeclare them. And that means that prevents you from like accidentally making mistakes like, tons of code here. That's how you write a comment, by the way. And accidentally redoing name way further down in the code and totally forgetting. So let's take a look at what that looks like. Let's just change var here to let. And here you're going to see this is an action. Instead of being able to redeclare, you actually get an error now. You can't redeclare let again. However, if we were just reassigning, we weren't using this let keyword to declare it again, then we'd be totally fine. So let's watch this show up down here. Here's our console logs here. And you can see that name is Ashley right here. And then later on down the line, we say, oh, I want to reassign name to Koloje. Now, when we log that and we find out what name is, here it is, Koloje. So this is really great because, like I said, you're never going to accidentally overwrite your variables this way. If you even try, remember, you accidentally say let name equals Koloje, or let's say that you have lots and lots of JavaScript files and you've got two variables of the same name in that same scope. This totally gets rid of that problem. So really, really great tool to use. The other tool we have at our disposal is a very special variable type called const. And think about that, const. What does that sound like? It kind of sounds like constant. In fact, that's actually what it's short for. So constant is exactly what you think it is. It's a constant. It stays. It doesn't move for anything or anyone. If you define a constant, you declare a constant, it can never be redeclared and it can never be reassigned within the same scope. So let's say that my name is Ashley Koloje, and I really like that name. So I'm never going to change that. Const name equals Ashley Koloje. And then later on down the line, I try and say, oh, I didn't change my code down here. I'm going to try and reassign name to just my last name. Now check this out. Unlike let, I can't reassign this again. I can't ever redeclare it. I can't reassign it. I actually get an error. So let's take a look at this. Here, variable name. And let's just clear this out to make that really clear. Come on. There we go. So here we have my name logged at line 2, and then it being redefined and logged again at line 7. And you can see that plain variables let you do that again. And you can even reassign it, and it will let you do the same thing. If we were to change this to let, so here we go, let, and here we go, let here, that same thing would create an error because you can't redeclare let. However, if you were to take that out, turn it back to assignment, now it will continue running. And now it's okay because you're only declaring it once. Finally, that third type that we have, that third option is const. And const will say, if you try and ever reassign it again, that's a problem. And that's why we can't do line 6 and line 7 here. So the way to fix this is just not to reassign it. And now you can see that this will run and there will be no errors. All right, so this is great and all, but when do you use what? What is the best practice for creating variables in JavaScript? Well, let's think about this. Basically, I would start, and I would start with const. Think to yourself, am I about to, is this ever going to change? And if you can answer no to that, I never want to change this, I never want to update this, I'm not going to add to it, delete from it, whatever, just start with const. if you're thinking, okay, well, maybe on later down the line, like say my name is probably not going to change, but what about my age? So here, my age is 31. Well, if my age is going to change over time, I probably want that to be a let, because I don't want to accidentally redefine my age, right? But I do want to be able to add to it later. And let's just see what that looks like. Let's do a 31 plus plus and console log. We'll talk more about this in a second. Oops, you know what I did wrong? Age plus plus. And I've got a semicolon in the wrong place. There we go. Errors all over the place. So here, age is 31. Down here, it's 32 because we've added 1 to it. That's kind of like a shortcut for that. But if we had this as a const, again, remember that would be an error, right? So here we go, invalid assignment to const age. That's still trying to change it. Finally, honestly, there's really no good reason to be using var anymore. I really want to be seeing const and let in your work now. Var, you're probably going to see in some examples. So if you see var when you're looking stuff up on the internet, take it out, change it, just make it either a const or a let, depending on what the purpose of the variable is. You can technically write it, but it's old syntax and it's not going to look good to any employers that want to hire you if you don't have a really good reason for using it. What's the good reason for using it these days? If you don't have Babel installed or something like that, but we've already got you set up with that on the boilerplate. So there's really no good reason not to be using const or let. So just remember, const for constant stuff, let for things that are going to change. Take variable, that var, right on out of your vocabulary. Know what it is, but know that if you see examples of it, you should just be updating that to a more modern syntax. So I hope that helps you out. I hope you understand more about the different types of variables that you have available to you. Next, we're going to be looking at different types of values in a variable and how that can affect what you can do with those variables. So I'll see you in a moment to explain that.